Cool.
All right, guys, welcome to the Tony and Dakota podcast. We got another special guest. Tony's going to introduce him.
This is Silas Norris. He's most known for being one of the owners of MBN Properties. They do a lot of higher end builds in the Angola area, right?
Oh, all over.
All over the place.
Northeast
That's kind of
Indiana.
like where you guys were centralized before, but
Northeast,
everywhere. They build houses here in Northeast Indiana. They also have some rental properties. We're going to talk about how he got started buying and flipping properties. Owns some of these corporations with family members, so we're going to get into that a little bit. But this is Silas Norris.
Bam.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Dude, I didn't know you're with Wired Properties. What is that? Do you have any
What kind of research did you do? Are those all the entities that I have?
Yeah, I do as much.
Funny.
I was going to ask him about that too. I think they named it after Drew as like kind of a joke.
So
you guys are good at naming stuff and having like an inside kind of like.
Yeah. So did you find Shroot Farms on there anywhere?
No.
We had Shroot Farms LLC. I was proud of that one. You guys watch The Office?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. But
Did it get shut down?
no, I think that dissolved. In fact, most of those have probably been dissolved. That's why it's surprising to me that you found them. We don't have a Wired. I don't know what else you got, but
Wired 1, Wired 2, Wired 3.
2 Elk. Not sure what that is either.
He's like,
So what we used to do when we'd flip a house, so we had investors and like Drew Wired, right? One of our investors, and we would form a joint LLC. So it would be jointly owned between MBN and him, and it was Wired Properties. I believe that's the way it worked. It's been several years, so we had that LLC, and we used to because it was advice from attorneys and stuff, which I think you got to be careful with advice from attorneys because you can end up spending yourself, and it's so much money that now you can't start a business because you've spent all this money on contracts and legal advice. But that's kind of a different topic, but. We would, at one point we were told with our flips, we should everyone should be in its own separate entity, which once we started scaling, that wasn't practical. So we've probably had 30 different entities over the last 10 years.
That's awesome.
Most of which now down to just 3 or 4, just different businesses that have their own.
That's funny because we were buying this big brick building, and one of our friends, Jordan Wildman, he buys a bunch of brick buildings. So we were gonna name it better than Jordan's
Better
brick.
than Wildman or
better than Jordan's Brick Building LLC or something like that, and just buy it under that. We were just gonna do it.
It's funny that you guys do that because do you know what MBN stands for?
Must be nice.
We wanted you to say.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's kind of a joke, and it has nothing. What's funny about that is MBN stands for Must Be Nice, and it has nothing to do with almost anything other than the fact that we used to talk in acronyms when acronyms were more popular. And me and my colleagues at work, oh, you're going on vacation, MBN, or MNBN, must not be nice. We just talked that way, and when we made our entity that was going to be for house flipping, we thought that'd be like a side business. We were going to be real estate agents, and we'd flip a few houses here and there. But that at the time when we left our jobs in 2012, the flipping market was just insane, and so that quickly became our main gig. And we're like, okay, now we're at a point where we need to get signs. We need to have a Facebook page. We need to have a website. Do we change the name? And it's funny. This kind of shows you generationally, one, I think I told you guys already before we started, I don't like to follow rules, but it's also probably because we're millennials, we get bored easily and we like to defy authority. But it's funny, I had someone I really trust and still respect to this day, a very successful family member. He came to me and he said, hey, the most important thing you guys are going to do now that you've left your jobs is come up with a name for your company. It's the most important thing. It matters so much. I mean, he went on a 5-minute spiel, and I'm kind of like, I agree to disagree. Yeah. Dude, I mean, we're gonna stick with MBN.
That's hilarious because our business coach Ryan Pineda said the exact same thing.
He was like, you guys need to rebrand because we had already branded as LTD and the logo was so cool.
Yeah.
We spent $100 and I got a hold of an old friend who was a graphic designer, and Dakota was like, I want it to look sleek. I want it to have the letters like this. I want it to look a certain way. We got that and we started sending out mailers and we did the Google My Business page and we built up this brand around LTD. And a year and a half into it, he's like, yeah, I think you guys should be like Fort Wayne Home Buyers, which makes more sense.
Yeah.
Or you
Some
guys should
catchy
be
name.
Yeah, something like that feels home, cash offer or something like that. And we were like, yeah, we're already too far into this.
Like, yeah, what other advice you got for us? Seriously though, but that's hilarious, dude, that you got the same advice. So that was when you just started MBN?
Yeah, well, right before we started, I don't even know if we had the entity, but we had that meeting with one of my family members, and he had just strongly advised. I think he even gave some suggestions. So he felt really strongly that we needed to have a good, strong name, and we disagreed with that. So
all four of you, or just you?
all four of us.
Oh. That's awesome.
Yeah. And MBN doesn't sound, people don't, they assume it's like our initials or something. So, I would argue that it does still sound, it's not a complete joke.
The other funny thing is that kind of sucks about both our name, LTD, and MBN is when you're on whenever you're calling the utility or something, MBN, that's M as in Mary.
Oh, yeah, that's every time. Mike is, as in Mike, Brian, Nancy.
Yep.
I know you actually say must be nice, because then people, is that what it means? Actually, it is. But you have to get into the whole story. But yeah. So MBN.
Let's go back a little bit before we talk about how you guys got started. When I was asking you where you're from, because I thought maybe you were from a villa originally, and then you said that you kind of grew up in Russia for a little bit of your childhood. So talk about that. Like, what was it like growing up? What was going on that you were in Russia? How did you grow up? And then, did you go to college? Did you go straight into being a realtor? What did everything look like? Just how were you raised?
Yeah, so I think I was 5 or 6. My dad was in real estate. I come from a long lineage of real estate developers, builders. I think I'm 4th generation. And I did some math, and I'm like, I think prior to 4th generations ago, if you wanted to build a house, there were no builders. You just built it. So my lineage, I think, goes all the way up in that kind of new construction. But when I was 5 or 6, my dad and mom decided they wanted to be missionaries. My dad kind of felt the call to the mission field. And so we moved to Volgograd, Russia, which is like 600 miles south of Moscow, which is crazy to think about. I have 3 kids now. At the same age that my kids are now, my parents had 4 and moved all of us, sold the real estate business and moved overseas, which is a crazy calling. And but yeah, it worked out for my family. And so I spent from age 6 to maybe, I think I was like 13 or 14 when we moved back. So 7 or 8 years. In Russia, so that's a big part of my childhood memories are those years. And
do you know Russian now?
I do speak Russian.
Wow,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
yeah. If Russia takes over, if they do what they're maybe about to do,
you're good, dude. Yeah.
I've always said Russian doesn't come in very useful, but maybe it will. That's a joke.
Have you seen
That's
Salt?
a World War III joke. But
have you seen Salt?
Man, it sounds familiar. But
okay, that's Angelina Jolie. She's a Russian spy. So
did it come out when I missed so many things that people think, oh, you used to watch that show, right? And I'm like, between I have to remind people, like, I was in Russia during those years.
Yeah, no, it's like 2010, 12, somewhere around there. But you could be like a Russian spy or something like that.
I don't know that I speak it. I used to speak it like pretty dang good. You do lose some of it. Like, I could still live there, go shopping. You want me to have a deep political conversation? I can barely do that in English, but
Right.
Yeah, I would struggle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, did you end up going to college?
I didn't. Not a huge fan of college for the most part, but I couldn't get into college. I was the bottom 5 or 10% of my class in high school. Just didn't have any interest in it. I would say the school failed me, but I failed it just as much. I just didn't care about school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew it had nothing to do with geometry. So people can say, oh, you were dumb. Well, I think I was smart enough to know I wasn't going to do that.
Right.
Whatever, however you figure out the amount of volume in a cylinder, not interested. So it just didn't interest me. And I've learned that I actually love education and I love to learn, but maybe it's selfish, but I only love to learn what I am interested in. If I'm interested in something, you'd ask my wife. She's like, man, you're on YouTube watching every single thing you could possibly learn about it. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like obsessed with it. Like literally it's a problem, but like if I'm interested in it, if I'm not, I'm going to let somebody else do that. So,
yep.
So yeah, I couldn't get into college. I ended up taking some courses. So I guess I arguably could at Ivy Tech because I think anybody can get in there. But I joke and I tell people I had a 3.8%. I had 3.8 GPA, which is true, but it was out of 12 at Leo at the time. So, but which is funny because I married my high school sweetheart and she was 2nd or 3rd in our class. Wow. So I was a good salesman maybe, but I think she thought my grades were better than they were. I don't think she knew. She didn't know it was bottom 10%.
Did you get in a lot of trouble in high school? I know you said that you didn't really like to listen to people, and then like usually whenever you don't do work, people get upset about that.
I think my problem was that I was homeschooled, and I would argue underschooled for many years. But I didn't get. I wasn't a troublemaker. I would say I started to become one when, like, my senior year, when you start to feel a little bit more freedom, or I don't know why, but I started minor stuff. I didn't get kicked out of school or anything like that. But yeah, so I had good parents. I don't know where I'd be today because I've made a lot of mistakes in life, but I mean, I've had good parents. So
gotcha. And then what about your siblings? So you have are they all brothers?
So I had a sister pass away when I was in high school.
Wow.
It didn't happen shortly after we got back from Russia. She got hit by a car. You know where Deer Track Golf Course is? It's right off Tonkel Road.
Oh, okay, yep.
She got hit right on Tonkel Road, just south of Auburn. And then I have two brothers. My younger brother's the worship pastor at Pathway Church.
Yep.
And my older brother's one of my business partners.
Wow.
Works with me in real estate. So
that's awesome.
There was four of us, crazy, all 1 year apart in October. You start thinking about that, like my mom was pregnant for pretty much 4 years straight. So
wow.
Pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you get along with your siblings pretty well?
Yeah, we still get along well to this day, and we all have kids at similar ages, which creates a lot of chaos because we're outnumbered. But yeah, still close to this day and close growing up.
What does the business look like? Because I know a lot of people are like, don't do business with family. That's like my grandpa's number one advice when I was asking him, like, what's some life advice you would give me? And before it was, more like, you know, love your family, do this, do that. One time he was just in a bad mood and he was like, never do business with family. What do you have to people that say that? Like, what's your, like, obviously you did, so it worked out okay.
Yeah.
And then what do your roles look like in the company?
So I would say that there's some truth to that. Family can, boy, I don't know how much I want to get into it, but I've done business with family that has not gone well, and I've done business with family that has. The only long-term person I've done business with is my brother, and we both are, there's four partners, and we're really pretty evenly divided in our skill sets, which I think just was a blessing that we didn't anticipate when we started our company. A lot of it was out of just money, like, oh, you've got 20 grand and you've got 20 grand. Turns out I do. That we can have an equal partnership, and we can make this work, and we can go buy a house. And so that was really, I would say, that's how the partnership started. But what I didn't know, and this is one of those like secret blessings that I didn't think was going to happen, but like we all have very different skill sets. And the good news, I think, and it's taken us some maturity. It's taken us 4 or 5 years. There was a lot more arguments early on. And that's one of the things that a lot of banks told us, like, hey, we like you guys, you're doing good, we want to loan to you, but it's almost like a band when there's four of you, right? Bands don't work out long term, like you're going to break up, especially the fact that there's four of you. And so I always remember telling my partners, like, hey, there's four of us. The banks have, like, several banks have brought it up to me that it's a concern of theirs. So we need to be mindful of that now. I mean, they're not concerned for no reason. I mean, they've probably been down this road. So I think we've done a really good job at, like, listen, like if it's construction with subs and stuff, like that's Jonathan and Nate, my brother Nate and my partner Jonathan. That's their department. And honestly, even though we're equal partners, like their say-so trumps mine. I'm on the sales side with John, and I have some liberties to make some decisions that, they will keep their mouths shut, because, that's my department. So we've done a good job at dividing it up. And I would say our relationship now is, they truly are some of my best friends and stuff. But we even have separate offices. Like their office building is 100 yards from mine. So I don't see my brother sometimes for 4 or 5 days.
Yep.
And so we work together, but in some ways we don't.
Yep. So you don't have to go too far into it, but like, what would your advice be for like, what could you have done differently, I guess, for whatever relationships didn't go well, and like why is this one with your brother going better than the other one?
Oh boy, it depends on which one we dissect there, but doing business with family can just be. I haven't done a lot of business with the family. Like I used to work for my uncle and my aunt that to this day own Granite Ridge. Love my aunt and uncle, but there's times when, he's the top builder in town, and there's times when it's like, I would do things differently. And it's like, but great aunt and uncle, but like, yeah, I would run my business differently. Well, guess what? Any business owner would say that. Right. So in fairness, if he worked for me, there's many things he would say, well, I would do this differently. And he would have a right to say that. But there can be tension and stuff at times when it's all work, and even at family reunions, well, he's my boss, I'm trying to impress him at family reunions and things that it's like, I just feel like that it can get a little bit messy in that regard. So, and my dad is still the vice president there. So I would say I worked under my dad as well.
Is that Lonnie?
Yeah, and by the way,
Okay.
you even mentioned the fact that his name is Lonnie, because there was times at work he's like, hey, should I call you Lonnie? Because, I mean, you're my dad, but, is that not professional? And like my Uncle Tony, it's like, hey, should I always call you Uncle Tony? Like even in front of customers, or is like, should I call you Tony? And it's like, then outside of work, like that's one small, like tiny example of just things that it can just get a little bit messy and tough. And it's still hard for me to this day to not look at my Uncle Tony and say, hey, Tony. And I'm like, man, that's kind of disrespectful. At least I was brought up to call an Uncle Tony, right?
Yep.
So there could be some dynamics there. And it's like, I don't mean disrespect. It's just for 10 years, that's what I called you. And so, yeah, there's just things there that, no one right or wrong, but there's just things with family that I think can get confusing, and it's tough, and family should trump any sort of business decisions, or, it trumps business and money. So for me, the best thing for a lot of my family's relationship was me and my brother leaving, and I think they're better off for it, and I think we're better off for it. So creating a win-win.
That's awesome.
And there really hasn't been any other family business we've done other than I used to work for a family business.
Yep. So I got one more question about that. So basically, I don't know how close you all four were like before you guys got started, but like, how have you seen your relationships change? Like, do you guys still like, talk about brotherly things, or is it went all to business now? Or like, do you guys have it where you turn it on and off and like, and like separate that, or?
We separate it pretty good, I think. I mean, there is some people that, and I don't know why people ask us this, but, so the four of you, you're best friends, so you hang out on the weekends, and it's like, I mean, I'm with them all week. And there's like 13 kids or something. Like, we're not going to get 13 kids together and all of us, and they're in sports. I mean, it is like once a year that we can get all four of the owners and their wives in the same room. Like, it's just not, it's a nightmare to plan, with everyone, personal schedules and vacations or whatever. So, I mean, we're good friends. Jonathan lives in the same neighborhood as me. We're like 2 houses down from each other. And, occasionally it's like, hey, come jump in my hot tub, or, hey, I had him come help me move something last night. So, I mean, there's certainly a good relationship there. Yep. But we get a lot of our, I mean, we have a ping pong table at work. We play ping pong every day. Challenge
That's awesome.
either of you to it.
Oh, man. If you're playing every day, I know I'm not going to win.
We're good. We're pretty good.
I can imagine.
We're picky on paddles, and it's got to be Olympic rules, throw the ball 6 inches, all kinds of stuff that we regulate.
We need a bigger space. That's what we need. Actually, we're about to open this up, so maybe we'll get a ping pong table in there.
It's fun. Honestly, it's funny that we added a ping pong table, and I think, because I've got like somewhere between 20 and 30 employees now and stuff too, and I would not have guessed that adding that, the kind of camaraderie, and I don't know, it seems like it's made a better work environment for everybody.
Wow.
So we also hit not ping pong balls. We hit golf balls to the island. Our offices are at Union 12, our event center, and we hit golf balls there. We like make people do it. Like, you need to go hit your 5 golf balls every day.
That's awesome.
You just have to do it. So, and it's been a fun dynamic. So
our coach has a ping pong table in his, so there's got to be something.
I guess we gotta get.
We're big on work, but we've actually followed, and I'd say it's the years ago, Facebook and Google and stuff on vacation, and hey, we want people to stay here and have fun. Like, everyone's got downtime at work. They don't need to be sneaky about it. You want to go play a ping pong game, go play it. Right. And if you don't, I will. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting a ping pong table.
Yep. There you go. Sold you.
So back to when you first got out of high school, you became a realtor. Did you have some early success as a realtor? And then what did life look like between becoming a realtor and then joining Granite Ridge Builders? And then how did that become you getting into real estate investing?
Yeah. So out of high school, I think I actually got my real estate license my senior year. It was either right after or during my senior year. Whenever I turned 18, I got my real estate license as soon as I could. And from there, I actually did start working at Granite Ridge Builders. I was a licensed agent, but I would say I wasn't really practicing existing real estate just because I was busy enough representing, new construction. And most people, name brand, Granite Ridge, like, people aren't going to list their home with Granite Ridge, right? They're a home builder. So I didn't really have any marketing to market myself towards that. I started doing more existing real estate as I would have customers that wanted to build, and, we got a house to sell, and like, turn around the hat, I can do that too, So I did get some listings and get kind of familiar with how that process worked. Just started kind of on, I think it was 2008. my worst year might have been 2009, actually. It might not have been when the market crashed, but either way, started looking and talking about other opportunities because, you know, my income wasn't really going up. Deservingly, I wasn't selling more houses. I wasn't, you know, and I'm like, man, is this just what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And what other things could I do? And I started looking. My dad and my uncle have always bought like sheriff sales, flips, and they kind of did that on the side. And so there was some interest there. I think I know exactly what it was. It was $24,000 in my 401k. And it actually started with just me and Jonathan, where he had, you know, similar amount of money that he was willing to invest. And we, you know, that's back in, I would say was like the heyday of flipping, because you could buy, you know, a house that was 5 years old. It needed, we called it the special back then. It was paint, carpet, 10 bags of mulch, and it was on the market in 2 weeks. Wow. And you really couldn't go wrong. It's a 5-year-old home, you know? I mean, so, and you could buy a house like that for 70 grand. And, you know, I think our first one was 55,000. It was in Ligonier, Indiana. I remember the numbers on it well. We ended up selling it for 100, but we only had like 70 in it. And, you know, like,
that's your first one?
And we both had jobs. And so we're both like, I don't really need the profits. Like, do you? No. And it's like, well, now we could buy 2. And so we take that money, we buy 2, and then we got the other guys interested. I'd say we made them jealous, and they were like, oh, we want to flip a house. And so, you know, we ended up like, hey, well, if we all have similar amounts of money to invest, we could go buy 3 or 4. And it was really quick that we realized, like, hey, there's like a business here. Now, we still think the business is going to be us just representing buyers and sellers, and that kind of be our main income. But like, we could probably flip 10 or 20 homes on the side. And we started realizing real quick that, like, no, if we got investors and banks involved, we could. I mean, I think our best year we did 70 or 80 flips in a single year, and we were trying to build even from there, but the market just kind of changed, and it made it really hard to buy. You know, you just didn't have our first 200 flips. I used to think we were awesome. Our first 200 flips, we did not lose money on one house. Wow. And I used to think, like, we should be doing seminars. We're amazing at what we do. I think our last 50, we lost money on half of them, close to it. When I say lost, broke even, or or you know, a couple grand here or there, it shifted to where, I mean, when we were buying the houses that were only 5 years old, like, to me became they were non-existent. I mean, the market started going up quick enough that people could just get out. They didn't need to foreclose. Right. So I don't know what that landscape looks like today, but finding 5-year-old homes, sheriff's sale, that are listed by the bank for 40 or 50 grand under market value is probably not real common right now.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
So yeah. And that was like the regular. We were doing multiples a month like that. So the houses you had to buy just needed a lot more work. And so you really couldn't afford to be wrong. Because, you know, before, if you were, you know, our margins were 40 or 50 grand on some of those flips. And if you were wrong by 5 or 10 grand, you were fine. Towards the end, and we kind of make the joke, like, if we went to the sheriff's sale and we bought a house, we were not happy. If we didn't buy a house, we were not happy. But like, you were unhappy either way, because you'd be walking out like, crap, I just paid 10 grand over what I said I was going to pay. Like, how am I going to explain this to the guys? And like, are we going to make any money on this house? You know, like, so it got hard. And so I know like Drew, good friend of mine, and you guys, like, you're doing creative things. Instead of doing those creative things, we started building homes. We saw the market. That's our background anyways. And we're like, we can build houses. We can control it. The nice thing about building is I can tell you what my first quarter is going to look like next year already. Right. You know, you can't, with flipping, like, banks would say, how do you think fourth quarter is going to be? And I'm like, you have to wait till the end of fourth quarter and we'll all find out, you know? I mean,
it depends on how hard everybody works.
I might buy 3 houses at the beginning of fourth quarter and still sell them that quarter. Like, with building, now that could be the negative too, like, but you will know. Same thing with, like, you know, the event centers we own. I already know what this year looks like and most of next year.
Like, it's already booked?
Yeah, it's booked. Wow. So, I mean, like, to be able to forecast out like that, like,
yeah, it's a game changer.
It's hard to go back to for me, it's hard to go back to the flipping world where it's like, I don't know, this quarter hasn't been written until the end of the quarter, but.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that about the sheriff sales too, because I remember going to the sheriff sales and just looking at people, and you were like, well, you're unhappy if you bought, and you're unhappy if you didn't buy. Yep. I remember looking at a lot of the people there, and I was like, wow, this looks like a lot of unhappy people. Yeah. Yeah. Like the sheriff sales are kind of mean. Like the folks there are just like ultra competitive, like kind of rough, like, you know, they've got a lot of money, but a lot of them don't look like they're having a good time when they show up to the sheriff's sales. And so when honestly,
I'm a sore loser. So there's several houses that I would follow through, like, okay, what's that guy going to do at the house? And unfortunately, this sounds bad to say, but it's just the truth. There's just an endless supply of ignorant people. Yeah. And so it's like, so who was your biggest competition? Well, it wasn't you guys or me or someone else. We all want to buy a house with margin. It was that guy that thinks you watch too much HGTV and he just thinks, oh, if I put a reasonable amount of effort into this home, I should be able to ask for a reasonable amount of return. And it's like, it's got to appraise. It's got to, I mean, there's comps. I'd see people list a home then for 180 grand that won't comp over 140.
Right.
And I'm like,
where'd you get
and
that
I'd
number?
watch it 2 months later, 170, 165. And then it's like, okay, so I wasn't wrong, like they just somehow thought they could list that house and the comps were clear as day. Yeah. So it's like they just maybe they don't have the real estate license or maybe they don't think comps matter or they're learning some hard lessons. The problem is I'd never see that guy again at the sheriff's sale, but there'd be somebody else. Yeah. And then there'd be every sheriff's sale, there's an endless supply of those people. So that's what happened to us in the sheriff's sale game where it got really hard. It may be getting, I don't know what it's like today. I haven't been to a sheriff's sale probably in 2 years. So
yeah, we don't go either. We just go direct to seller now. But so did your company ever buy does MBN or like you four guys or you personally own like a bunch of rentals? Because I know you talk about you got some consistency obviously with your other stuff, but before that ever happened, did you guys ever just start buying rentals to try to get some sort of consistency?
Yeah, so the rentals that we have at our maximum, I think we maybe had 40 units. And a lot of those were flips that we bought, and it's like, okay, I got this 3-bedroom, 1-bath in Kendallville, it's worth $74,900. I've got 55, 60 into it. By the time I sell it, pay, closing costs, commissions, all that, like there's no money there.
10 grand.
So yeah, and it's like, but I could finance out 50 grand from a bank right now, cash flow it at $800 a month, and like, maybe we do that. So, it's options.
Pay less in taxes.
Pay less, yeah. So, I mean, there was certain percentage of homes that we would say, you know what, that might be a good rental, and maybe the margins. A lot of times it derived from, hey, the margins aren't there. Let's just rent it. And then it became, oh, we'll sell it next year, and then we just rent it long term. So we've recently started selling some of those rentals, and we've been building a few.
Nice.
1031 and into some builds or whatever. But
I always hear that. Like at least the people that we always talk to out in Vegas and stuff like that, they're always like, all the flippers, their biggest regret is ever selling a property. Do you ever like look back and like look at those and like, oh my God.
Right now, yes, because I mean things have gone up like 30% in the last 2 years. So I mean, yeah, there's some houses that luckily we own some that I'm like, I can't even believe what they're worth today. Like that same 2-bedroom that was worth $74,900, I can sell for $120,000 and get multiple offers on it today.
Yeah,
and it's like that's nuts.
I don't know if you planned it or you had your Facebook girl plan it, but 10-year challenge was hilarious. That's one of my favorite memes.
We like to rock the boat. You know what's funny is we've had two or three Facebook things go viral. Like one of them had like 10 million. I mean, it was national viral, and it's always been controversial stuff.
Yeah.
It tells you why, like, the news is like, why isn't this in the news? It's because it's not controversial. If it's debatable, it'll be national news.
Yeah. In case you guys didn't see the meme, it was basically a stock photo of a property, like a brand new build, and it said 10 years ago, because it was part of the 10-year challenge, $250,000, and then the same exact property for like $750,000 or something like that. So it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, we had to delete so many. You don't even know how many comments. People just were really offended by that. I think they thought, I don't know what they thought.
By that one?
I think they thought that like builders are up in the price. Just so you know, my profit margin is way down from what it was 2 years ago. If you think I can stay on top of building prices going up 2% a month, no, the builder's the one paying that price.
Right.
And if you think that it works like, well, we signed a contract, so now all of your subs, that they're locked in. No, they're not. Thermotrue doors went up 8% yesterday. That's effective immediately.
Right.
So, I mean, with my markup, like I'm eating that. So garage doors went up 52% in 2 weeks, effective immediately. Builders are paying that price. So, I mean, yeah, our profit margin, our volume was up, thankfully, but our margin was down because you cannot stay on top of the price increase. And I'm probably just a glass half full guy. Every month for the last 2 years, I'm like, I bet we've hit the peak. And then the next month, I'm like, it's unbelievable. Like we've got to hit the peak. A little worried about if we don't soon because nationwide, I think they said 20%, which is right where we're at. 20% in the last year on new construction, and it was about 10 or 15% the year before that. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. What do you think about inflation? Talking about what, 7%?
Yeah, or like just the market in general, because we hear people all the time that are like, it's gonna crash, it's gonna crash, it's gonna crash, and then we listen to our mentors and stuff. And they're like, guys, there are no houses, and you can't really build any right now because prices keep going up. And also, like, I don't know how it's going to crash. It kind of sounds impossible. So with the amount of money that we printed and put into the economy, the demand for housing, do you see the market crashing in the future? Or what do you think about the market and what's going to happen?
I've learned, man, I always say this, I am so opinionated and I am so wrong a lot. So I've been wrong. I mean, I told people like, oh, interest rates are in the 4s. You're an idiot if you don't refi or buy a house or whatever. I went down to 3s and 2s, and they've been there for like 10 years. So like, I don't guess on economics. If you'd told me 2 years ago there was going to be a pandemic, new construction prices up 30%, I'd have said, we got to get out of the business. So there's going to be bread lines, and it's a depression. That's what I would have told you, like guaranteed. And somehow, like, I'm still got a line at my desk of people that want to build a home. It doesn't make sense, but it's happening. And so it's hard to guess, but I do believe there's like 2 separate issues. I was just talking about it with a friend earlier today. I said the problem is there's an inventory problem, and then there's this other sector that's worth considering, the fact that this is a nationwide thing. If this was regional, where prices were just going up for some reason regionally, then I would be concerned. But I said this is nationwide. When I say 20% in the last year for new construction, that's a nationwide stat. And I'm like, so Fort Wayne still remains one of the most affordable places to live. We've sold so many of our spec homes and so many like to people that live out of state. I just sold a house to a guy that he still works in California, but he can live wherever he wants. And so Fort Wayne is one of the most affordable places, and the stuff we're doing downtown and stuff, I mean, I never would have guessed that was going to take off like it did whenever they started that 10 or 15 years ago. And that's done huge. I mean, we're a cool place to live now. I mean, there's no reason not to live unless you hate snow, which is fair. But other than that, we are just as good a place to live as anywhere. We have good schools. We've got a lot of things going for Fort Wayne. But then if Fed, which, if the rate starts going up in March, I mean, that was been a huge carrot for people for a long time. I mean, I locked in last year at like 2.7 on a 30-year, because like a 15-year was like 2.6 or something. So 2.7% interest rate, and then some people still get in the 3s. I mean, that's a great rate. If rates go up, but the thing is, you still got that combated with the inventory problem, which is like a separate issue. So it's an interesting dynamic, and that's really all I can say about it. But I don't have any predictions of what's going to happen. But here's what I will say. Prices cannot continue to go up at 2% a month. Yeah. People can't sustain that. And I'm already seeing that, like where people, with new construction, it's very common. People come in, the long 4-year joke has been, man, if everyone just had another 50 grand, like I could make anyone happy if their budget was just 50 grand higher. And some people could choose to spend that or whatever. 50 grand in the scheme of things isn't always that much. Right. But I mean, my meetings in the last 2 weeks, they're a couple $100,000 away. The house they're describing, and they need or whatever, and what they can afford are like 200 grand away. And it's like, I mean, like, the difference is huge. I can't talk, and I'm not trying to talk people up on their budget, but like, we might as well end the meeting. I mean, 200,000. I'm not gonna. If I showed you what you could afford, like, we're not even close.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, you guys built some pretty nice stuff. There's some other home builders out there that don't build as nice
We're not a
stuff.
low end. Yeah, we're not a low end builder. I wouldn't say we're the highest end either, but we're not a low end builder. We're a custom builder. But yeah, it's getting hard for people, and that may be where like the market is. I mean, Altoff or whatever, some of those builders that build more boxy homes and stuff, like maybe we're going to enter a time when people got to start, I don't want to say dumbing the houses down, but kind of. I mean, you go to any other big city, and I mean, box builders are the name of the game. And here we kind of chew them up and spit them out because, we've got a lot of the Amish influence and a lot of good craftsmen here. We build a better home in Fort Wayne, and I mean this, than anywhere else in the country. And I've looked at homes a lot of places. The quality here, I mean, you say custom cabinets, people expect that from us. Wow. You go any other city and you mention custom cabinets and they're like, oh my gosh, where do you get those? That seems expensive. Some of them get them from here, like Grable. They send them all over the nation. Wow. But I mean, we're in an area where people just expect that. And it's because of our craftsmen or, stick-built framing and all that stuff. Like, they're not going to let you prefab walls and stuff. I mean, but we live in an area where people expect it. We may, if prices continue to go up, there may be more and more of a market for some of those boxier, cheaper builders. But I mean, those homes aren't falling down either. So they're it's a cheaper product. Yep. But
I want to go back just a little bit because I know we talked about like, the market crashing, and like there's never been people that have been in real estate that long since like, you said 08 or 09.
I was in 04.
04. Okay. So talk about that. Like, do you see any similarities at all, or is it just completely different?
Completely different. I mean, it was a financial crisis before. So, I mean, it was, and now with the government, no matter where you stand on that stuff, but I mean, their ability to put Band-Aids on things and do buyouts. And I mean, there's things that they can do in the market that can really prolong or, maybe temporarily at least fix, add to the debt, whatever. So it's interesting. That's the other reason why I think it's really even hard for forecasters to say what's going to happen in 6 months, because I've had banks tell me, in the next 6 months, X, Y, Z. And it's like, yeah, but there's some other elements at play that could happen that could prolong that or push it back. But I don't know if we're going to see a crash like we did in 08. I wouldn't think so. And the 08 one was like overnight too. I mean, we're talking like in a matter of 3 days, things changed drastically.
Were you guys flipping then?
Yeah, and the thing is too. I mean, I took part in it. Raised my hand. I'm not unproud of it. It was what it was. But there was a lot of subprime lending, and I mean the people that I wasn't giving loans, and it was not my job to tell people unless they ask, do you think I should do this? Like, no, you have $200 in your checking account. You're buying a $300,000 house. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
But people can do that. Like,
sure.
I'm about to get a raise at work. Well, we can actually put that on your application. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
And like that stuff's kind of gone now. So I mean, people are putting some skin in the game. So that does add an element of security.
Sure.
And so I do feel like, most of the loans, at least MBN does, all those customers are getting conventional loans, and so they're putting significant down payments down. And I mean, it does kind of safeguard, the system, I guess, or the market from, real estate would have to fall quite a bit for people to be in a position where they can't sell a house. So.
Yep. Was it way easier for you to get loans too then, like as an investor? Like was investor loans just as easy as like you going and just buying multiple homes for yourself or whatever? Or was it different between, investors and then the people who actually wanted to live there?
We've always worked with the commercial banking side of things is different than the residential, and I would say it's harder. Banks, I learned this, and I don't know if I read this or someone told me this, but it is true. Banks want to give loans to people that don't need them. So if you need a loan for this business venture, they don't want to give it to you.
Right.
Because of the word need. Yeah, you need it. If you've got 19 other options for money, they'd love to be one of them. Yep. So that's kind of where I would say most banks fall into that category. So I think banks are too conservative on the commercial side. I mean, I argue that all the time. I mean, they want to give, some of my banks want to give me, 80% of cost. Sounds good, 80% of cost.
Right.
So I'm really getting like a 60% loan to value. And it's like, what world do you live in where I foreclose on 75%? I mean, 75% loans became popular after the Great Depression when nationwide, the markets fell 25%. And so that's where, banks started saying, well, we should give 75% loans. That puts us in a secure place. So why would you ever need to give anything lower than that? I mean, the worst time in modern history that we have recorded was 25%. And by the way, it took the markets 4 years to bottom out at that.
Right.
So show me the world at 75%. With all the other assets I have, show me that world. And by the way, if that happens, I'm the least of your concerns.
Right. Everything's going to be pretty
Armageddon.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty bad then.
So I'm always trying to tell them that. And they're like, yeah, I hear you, but loan committee. It's like, yeah, I know. They go into loan committees.
Everybody's excuse now for like the next 20 years is going to be COVID for the last, friggin', how long ago was 2008? Well, since 2008, the excuse has been 2008. Now, in 2022, the excuse is COVID. So.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you go from one to the other.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you think about debt? Then, are you a big fan of Dave Ramsey?
No.
I say because I
don't
always
get
think
me started on Dave Ramsey.
I want to hear about it. What do you think?
Did we talk about him before? Why did you bring him up? Because he's like a hot button.
Just because we talked about debt.
It's a pretty good thing among real estate investors. They all dislike.
I dislike him so much that I watch his show. If that tells you anything, because I want to be educated enough.
What he says?
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta say one thing about what he said that I thought was hilarious. So I told Tony this. He told this guy. It was actually Pace Morby. I don't know if you follow him at all, but he's hilarious.
I don't.
You should.
Well, maybe I do. I'm not great with names.
He's a real estate guru type guy that mostly does subject to investing, but
you would love him, dude. He puts on this like bald cap and he's just like, Dave Ramsey, whenever you're signing for a car loan, he's just like, and like flips off the camera and stuff. And like, but he was telling the story about how, this guy wanted to start flipping properties or whatever. And the guy's like, well, what do you think I should do, Dave? I want to flip this property. I got, $5,000 saved up. He's like, well, can you pay cash for it? Yeah, well, keep working your job, work overtime until you save up the money for it. And Pace was just like, he just told this guy to work 40 years of his life to save up this money so he can flip one house. Yeah. One house. When he could just borrow it, make the money, and then like move on. And he's like, he just told that guy to waste his life.
Yeah, so the thing I'll say that if this is what Dave Ramsey's mission is, And if I ever could like see him in person and ask him, like, dude, behind closed doors, just tell me, like, because we all know America can be very, I want it now, immediate gratification, lots of debt, credit cards.
Yep.
And he's over here, right? And I'm like, if your goal by all of this way over here is just to get people in the middle, if that's really where you're trying to end, and you know people aren't going to follow all of your advice, or the majority of people aren't, but you're going to get them halfway, I'm with him. Because there is some balance to, you know, like I've told people, like he said the other day, he's like, I can't think of one reason why someone would need a credit card. There's not one reason in the world. Really? I can think of 4.
Yeah.
Right now. Traveling seas, security, building credit. I can't think of the 4th, but I can think of 4 right now.
Rewards,
Possible.
credit card rewards.
Credit card
Nice.
rewards. I can think of several. Now, here's what I would say. Have you made an interest payment on your credit card in the last year? If the answer is yes,
Then
you probably
don't
shouldn't
want
have one.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I don't even think it's debatable. That is the answer. So I'm like, so why are you telling people that? And it's because I think you think you're talking to all these people that are crazy, and they probably do need to come halfway.
Sure.
And then, you know, but yeah, I saw an example once where the guy was like, hey, I've got this investment I could make, and, you know, I could pay off my house. It's worth $600,000. And I could pay off my house with that $100,000, or I could go buy this rental. I got this investment. And he's like, don't even want to hear about the investment. Pay off your house. And I'm like, wait a minute. He just said, and he said he owed $150,000 on his house. That's worth $600,000. And he said, let me tell you why you're going to pay off your house first. Every millionaire, we've studied them. You know what they all know? They all pay off their house. And you want to know why? It's because they all know that there's no chance of foreclosure after they pay off their house. And you know, 100% of foreclosures come from people with mortgages. And I said, do you know how many people, if we trust this guy's numbers, that he has a $600,000 house that he owes $150,000 on, he would literally have to be not right in the head for that to foreclose. There's no world that we've ever lived in where that's a possible foreclosure. So for you to feel like he could still foreclose when he can borrow money at 2.5% or whatever on his current house, refi it or whatever, and then go use that $100,000 on an investment property, it's a no-brainer.
Or sell it.
Yeah.
Even if he sold it for half of what it's worth, he's still going to make money.
Dave Ramsey failed in the real estate business, and
he's still trying to make sure other people don't get ahead now.
he's probably helping some people, but I assure you he's hurting some. So.
Yeah. That is funny though, because I agree. I mean, there is something to, you know, living frugally, especially in the beginning, whenever you have to save, and you have to like delay that instant gratification. But he basically says to do that forever, and like, so yeah. I mean, I guess let's talk about that too.
I got like $10 million in debt, just so you know, and I'm proud of all of it.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Well, not ask that how much you have in debt right now, but like in the beginning, did you have to kind of follow that, like where, you know, you're like, hey, I'm not going to go and buy a freaking crazy car because my debt to income is going to be off and I can't get loans? Or did you ever have to live frugally, or did you always have like access to private money or anything like that?
No, and in fact, I'm glad you brought that up. But, you know, one of the things that probably just because of my family and the different things, I've had people come up to me, not many, but I've had a few that have said, oh, you know, it must be nice to go out and be able to have 30 or 40 houses.
Yeah,
you know,
they're using your logo.
Must be nice. Yeah, I know, exactly. You're like, literally, yeah, it must be nice to have a dad that, you know, really helped you guys out, you know, financially or whatever. And I'm like, first of all, if you think my dad's awesome, and if you think the best thing he ever gave me was money, you're wrong. He gave me all kinds of good advice. And he gave me something that far outweighs any kind of money thing. So number one, I'm offended at that. Two, I said, the reason you don't have 40 homes isn't because of money. It's because you're blaming your resources instead of your resourcefulness. That's the truth. I said, because when we take $100,000, right, we'd finance out of it, then we go buy another one, then we go buy another one, then another one. Then we had investors. Those investors were paying for 100% of the property. And then we were like, I don't know if we were splitting the profits, but whatever we were doing. And, you know, we get like $1 million in investor debt. So we go buy 10 houses. All the houses we had, there were loans on 100% of them. And, you know, we'd finance out as much as we could, finance all our money out and go do it again.
Yep.
So for us, it was like, I mean, it had nothing to do. I mean, you give me $100,000 and I'll go have 40 houses with it in the next year.
Yeah, I guess my main point though is that you're not buying stupid stuff. You're using debt to buy assets. So that's I think obviously as a real estate investor.
Yeah, and you're buying assets. Early on, was there anything that you bought that maybe you shouldn't have bought? Like, did you get you get a nice truck before you were actually ready? Or
he bought guns. We already know what he bought.
I do have some guns. Those are not a bad investment, but
that's true.
Possibly
That's
better
true.
than a house. But we were pretty. I would say we lived within our means. I mean, we were lucky to get into the flipping business when I think that it was the heyday of flipping. It may have actually been a year or two before we got into it, according to some of our competitors that, told us. But we got into it during a really good time, and the margins were really good. So we produced pretty good profit. And we did sell still existing real estate, buyers and sellers. So we made six-figure incomes year one.
Wow.
But
all four of you?
yeah.
Holy smokes. That's
So
crazy.
we did that year one and, kind of never looked back from there. So yeah, we did okay. But I mean, yeah, we had nice vehicles and stuff, but I think we had, the
income to
finances
support it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, building houses, venues for weddings and events, some rental properties you guys have got. What's the thing that's making you the most money? Like, which one is the most profitable business?
So it depends if you're considering, and as fellow investors yourselves, I mean, are you looking at ROI, or are you looking like, if you're looking at, the return on investment, I mean, our event centers have done really well. And for me, so one of the things that, and it's kind of depressing in a small way, but our first few years in business, like the struggle was we didn't have enough money. Like, oh my gosh, I bought 2 homes at the sheriff's sale. I could have bought 6 if I just had the money.
Yep.
But the thing that there was a lot of hope in that, because I knew we're going to get there. We're building it. We're putting money back into the business. We got more investors lining up, banks, like we're going to get there. Now we're at a point where it's kind of like time is the problem. And so it's like, what's really limiting me now is time, and I can't get more of that. So in some ways, that's kind of there's some depressing factors to that, because it just is what it is. And
You can lend us some money, bro.
yeah, maybe, you never know. But
Just let us replace you, put us on a really high salary, and then we'll just do your job for
my
you.
job.
Then you got all your time back.
So the beautiful thing about like both of the event centers I have is I always joke I could move to California and still run those, because we have staff in place. We have, good processes in place, and they've been really profitable and really predictable, meaning I already know this year we're going to produce similar profits to last year and the year before. Like, I already know that based on what we have in the pipeline, and then next year is already looking good. So those businesses have been the best ROI. But MBN Properties is, I mean, we did 26 or 7 million last year in new construction, and that's our main source of income for sure. And then the rentals, we cash flow there, but it's
That's nothing now.
it's not.
So who's your biggest competitor then? Like, do you guys even really have a competitor, or is there anybody doing luxury like you guys, or?
Yeah. So there's other builders. It is hard, and I'll battle with the customer on this. Floor plans are copywritten now. Probably one of the best thing that's ever happened for builders, but probably a pretty unfortunate thing in my mind for customers, because back when I worked at Granite Ridge, they would take our floor plan and they'd go price it, we were competitive at the time, Granite Ridge, I'm saying, like, we were competitive, but people would take that floor plan and go price it around, and some builders would come up with their own version of it. It was the same thing. They called it something else. Now you can't do that. Like, I mean, like if I've got a floor plan on my website, like even a derivative of that, meaning you could print that off, take it to another builder and have them change it 19,000 times. If my floor plan is the derivative, like, you can't do that. And so most builders respect that. Like, hey, whatever you priced out with them, don't open that folder right now, because as soon as I see that, I mean, things get muddy, and not only for me, but for the customer. So in fairness, like, I can price out a different home for you, but like, how do you compare that? Like, so it's made, like, are we a competitive builder compared to this builder? Or who's your main competitor? It makes it really hard for a customer to even want to, so we have to sit down with you and start from scratch. I mean, we already have a floor plan in this file. Like, I don't even want to see it. Like, we're starting all over, and you can describe the same thing. And if I happen to draw it, I came up with that myself. But like, you can't just, so there's copyright laws. And I think we're one of the only top builders that has not been sued. And those lawsuits can be big. I mean, millions of dollars. I mean, it depends on how many times you built it or what you did. But I mean, they can be ugly. So we take it pretty seriously. Like, hey, if you've got a floor plan that you own the rights to, which is different, you had an architect draw it for you, you paid for it. But that's not a good way to do things either, because now you're going out and having an architect draw something. He's just going to he's an order taker, right? Everyone's going to describe the White House. I've never had an architect draw a plan for a customer that they brought in and was anywhere near their budget. We'll unroll it. Oh, 400,000? Yeah, that's 900,000. All right, let's start from scratch. You just spent 6 months. And why did you do that? Well, we wanted to own the plan and be able to take it to different builders. Can't. because this wasn't even close, to what you can afford.
So you guys have your own architects in house?
They're not in-house, so that is one of the of all the employees we have 3 different architects we work with that we outsource. They give us a certain amount of hours, like in a week, I guess. Yeah. But and we actually like that. It's one of the reasons I think our houses look different, like from one to the next.
Yeah.
Because when you tend to go with one architect, I mean, I can tell you, just jump on our website, I'd be like, I can tell you exactly what architect drew it because of their style.
Yep.
And so it's like, we've talked about, should we just hire, because we're paying more than just one full-time architect, but I'm like, if we just hire one of them full-time, we're going to get a lot of that flavor over and over and over and over again. And I kind of like being, if we want a real modern house, like, I know the guy for the job. Yep. If we want something, whatever style, like, okay, that's going to be, this guy or, this girl. So, yeah, we like to keep it separate, but yeah, we've got some part-time draftsmen that work for us.
That's awesome.
What marketing techniques work well for you guys? I know you're active on social media. Did you guys just say like, hey, we're going to start building houses now, and then all of a sudden people came to you? Or was it more like, hey, we had to build our brand, hire these salespeople. These salespeople went out and found people. Was it just a social media push? Was it TV, newspaper?
Yeah.
Like, how did you guys market?
So we probably had a few thousand followers, and then we did the HGTV show. Did you know about that? We did that. How was
pilot.
That, 3 or 4 years ago? Yeah. Pilot aired a few times. We went from like 3,000 followers to like 12,000 followers on social media in like weeks, maybe a few months. But
did
quickly.
They air it?
They aired it. Yeah, they aired it 3 times.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they aired it 3 times, and didn't end up picking it. They didn't go to season, which is crazy because we got more publicity. Like if I had to guess, like the publicity we would get from a whole show, like 12 episodes or whatever it is, we got that just out of the pilot. Like I just never would have guessed how much marketing we would get just out of the pilot.
Wow.
And in fact, it shows you how like ignorant people are. I mean, I had somebody turn around on an airplane to me like 6 months ago. I've watched every one of your shows. They're so great. I'm like, I think I got a show aired on it. I think they think I'm one of the Property Brothers, but
oh, I
have no idea. But it's like, and we had so many people comment like, oh, I watch your show like every Thursday. And I'm like, what show are you watching? Because that's not our show.
Dude, that's hilarious. You know what? I never even told you this, but like one time I was hanging out with Logan or something at the MBN thing at like one of the home and garden shows. They're coming up to me like, one of them, and I'm like,
which brother are you?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, dude, I don't even know what to say to these guys, but they thought we were you guys for some reason. But
so there's enough of that, and I guess I'm thankful for it because there are people that still think our show's airing on HGTV. I mean, they own it, so they could rerun it, and they do that occasionally with pilots. So they wouldn't tell me; they would just do it, but like in the middle of the night or something. But
but that was huge for you guys.
Oh, it was huge. Yeah, it was huge, and it helped us with the brand. Perception is reality, and we are quality guys. We know how to build a quality product, but they were on HGTV, so they're the best.
On that TV, was that about building or was that for flipping for you guys?
It was about flipping, and we flipped a house in Elkhart, and it was called Small Town Big Flip, and we flipped a house in Elkhart, Indiana.
Nice.
Yep.
What do you guys do better than any other home builder?
I talk to my wife about this all the time because one, communication. We communicate. We do use like Builder Trend, which is an online software, which really is helpful. I mean, it's expensive, but like it's like we used to build houses before, and then we did it with Builder Trend, and I'm like, I don't even know how we did it before. With communication and all that stuff. It's like it's all there. It's centralized. All our communication's on there, and so communication's one of them. The other thing is, I mean, and this is the thing like about my partners, like. We're talking about partnering with maybe Youth for Christ and a couple other charities building the house. We've done that before, and like I never even had to get permission from my partners to do that because like we're all like-minded. We want to give back, and so like I always said like if you're going to partner with people that at least from a moral perspective have the same core principles and ideas, and I think that's important. And I tell people all the time like a lot of things like boil down, and I think COVID has made it worse, but people. They're just not very trusting. And I've always told my wife, if people really believed me, I would have almost no problems ever with customers. And trust me, we have our share. But it really boils down, I said, it really boils down to trust. If they knew that when I told them, I will not allow a single stud in your home that I would not allow in mine. If I was building my own daughter a house, and if I'm not okay with it in her house, I'm not okay with it in yours. I said, I tell that to every customer. I said, but some of them, they just don't believe you. It must be what it is, because I'm telling you this is okay and you're still freaking out about it. Like, you just don't trust me.
Yep.
So for us, I do encompass that. Like, I will not, if I was building a house for you, I will not allow something in your house that I will not allow in mine. Now, I say that to say houses are not perfect. They're new. They're not perfect.
Right.
So you have to have that understanding. There's imperfections. I just built a house for myself, my dream house, and there's imperfections in it. Like, come over, I'll show them to you.
Well, dude, I always tell our guys. I was just telling them, I was like, guys, like, because they did this. Like, yeah, you can see cracks like right there. I'm like, dude, this was perfect.
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Yeah, it dried out.
And then it gets hot and cold and expands, and then bam, there's cracks everywhere. I'm like, let's stop making these things so freaking like perfect, and let's get them like 90% good, and then like stop making it like perfect. But yeah, dude, houses expand. They're gonna crack. They're gonna move. I mean,
I've spent a lot of time, because people will come in. Oh, we'll never build with this builder. Oh, there was a hairline crack in my driveway, and I'm like, I got a hairline crack in my driveway. Like that's not.
It happens.
It's concrete. I mean, it's eventually going to crack. I mean, it doesn't happen on every driveway, but it can happen. Happened to me. So, like, if that's your standard, or if that's why that builder's a bad guy, you know, I mean, there's thousands of components in a new home. I mean, if he got all but one of them right, you know, if you got all of them right but one of them, you should probably build another home with him, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of it's education, and a lot of it is people just don't know. And they, you know, builders, probably no different than like real estate agents. Like, we're not rated much higher than, you know, lawyers, and, you know, just as far as like trust goes.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of people, like, you know, there probably are some builders out there that are trying to screw people, and so they kind of come in with the guard up, and I need to inspect the house every single day, and, you know, and I'm going to be measuring stuff and looking for stuff, and it's like, you know, call and ask.
You want to blow a deal up, just get the parents involved. That is all real estate, including the home building. Yeah. My dad told me you got to have 2x6 walls. Let me tell you about the way your dad used to build homes, and how they used to insulate them and all that.
Yeah, right.
We've improved things. Trust me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What do you think is easier, like building homes or actually building them? Because I think I talked to you about this before, but I have a friend.
Building them or whatting them?
Building them or flipping them. Like whenever you're buying them.
You said building or building.
Oh,
well, I'm gonna choose building.
You're gonna build them or you're gonna build them.
Did I get it right?
But like building them or flipping them, because I had a friend of mine that down in Tennessee says that building is way better, way easier, more like less work for him, less headaches, and then it's actually more profitable. But what do you think was like better? Obviously, there's got to be something to it, otherwise you would still be flipping. But
building is more predictable. There's a little bit more profit, I would say, and I haven't slept good since I started my own business, though. Flipping or, owning a business, the overhead. There's plenty of reasons to lose sleep. So
and you got to bang too.
And I drink a lot of caffeine at night. But I wouldn't say that's a nightly thing for me, but yeah. So I would say building's more predictable, but you know, building can fall off. I mean, it can fall off, you know, pretty hardcore. Yeah, and that's when I would want to be flipping. So, in fact, I used to have people come up to me, oh man, we're thinking about flipping. This is just like a few years ago. We're thinking about flipping houses. And I'm like, everyone's telling me now's the time to do it. And I said, when everyone tells you it's not the time to do it, do it.
Yeah.
When you go to everybody and they're like, you guys are idiots, then do it. But because it starts with buying the house right. And if everyone's telling you to flip, I mean, this guy sells hot tubs for a living. If they're telling you should get into real estate and be flipping houses, I mean, everybody knows it. Yeah. So, I mean, you need to be doing it when everyone's like, I'm not doing that. The people in real estate are getting out. That's when you flip houses, in my mind.
What do you lose
The fact that you guys are doing it now with any success, I mean, this is the hardest flipping market I believe there is, personal opinion. So it's only up from here. Right. Building is at an all-time high, but it can go down.
Okay. That's what we figured too, is we're like, well, if we're doing it in this market, that means like we do spend a stupid amount in marketing, and then like, you know, I have like a decent amount of sales skills because like I've did it for a while. So we try to build it up from there. But
if you can do it now and make any sense out of it at all, I think it could get better.
Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully, everybody keeps telling us like, dude, the market's gonna turn, and then you guys are gonna be screwed. I'm like, I think we're gonna do better.
Well, he's kind of talking about.
No, you will do better.
He's talking about when like the banks too were like kind of trying to get rid of some inventory, and they were willing to take discounts on property and like that sort of thing. Because
I used to have banks calling me, like, dude, we got this property, we need to unload it, and here's the scenario. I mean, that was a common. I wouldn't say it was weekly, but it was at least monthly. I'd have one of my bankers calling, like, we got to unload this property. What can you do? And it's like that. Those calls. I haven't got one of those calls in like 5 years.
Yep. What's your biggest like you said you're losing sleep, and I always feel like business owners always like kind of lose sleep on it because there's always something going wrong. What is like the biggest thing that like stresses you out or like that you lose sleep over, and like do you have anything that you do that helps you deal with it?
I would just say for me, my wife would attest to this. I don't lose sleep over money. I mean, we lost 120 grand on a house once when I would argue we really couldn't afford to take that kind of loss. I didn't lose sleep over that. We can overcome that. Price of education. I don't lose sleep over that kind of stuff. I lose sleep over more just, you got 20 or 30 employees and there's this problem or that problem. And, for me, it's more people because I do care more about people than I do houses.
Right. Yeah.
I hope we all do. But so for me, it's tough when there's, I remember the first employee I had to let go and it was that was hard on me. I mean, they've been there for years, and we just finally got to a point where I'm like, I'm gonna have to let this person go. That weighed on me. And some people are much better. I got one of my partners that's like, okay, come in, you're out. Yeah. I mean, much better for him, and that's great. I guess that he's able to do that. But it's like, man, I know we're about to really impact this person's life, and like it's that kind of stuff's hard on me.
Gotcha.
I've grown in that area, but I care about people, and I don't want to disappoint them, I guess, or dealing with hard things like that, employee type stuff a lot of times.
Gotcha.
What do you think your biggest struggle is right now? Like, what could you use help with or help on?
Probably just time is where, and we've got good staff and good people. It's hard to find you probably know this, but it's hard to find good contractors right now. It's hard to find, it's not hard to find customers. You asked earlier about marketing. We don't do a whole lot right now. Yes, we're active on social media, but a lot less active than we used to be. In fact, I don't even handle it anymore. We have one of our employees that does it, and we have more people than we want. In fact, there was a time about a year or two ago, John and I were like, we need to do more on social media, and I'm like, but then we're going to get more calls.
Right.
Like we can't handle it. So it's not in me to like turn down business. So it's also like, man, yeah, we probably shouldn't post too much. Weird conversations to have, but that's just kind of where the market was. But time is one of those things that, and balancing that with family and stuff too. I mean, I've got 3 kids and you got to spend time with them. My theory on kids, I found myself with my 6-year-old, I think he's 7 now, but at the time he was 6, I was holding him and looking at pictures of him when he was younger. And I found myself missing him while I was holding him. And I'm like, wow, what's that about? How can I miss my son when he's right here in my arms? Yeah. And I'm like, and I think I figured this out, like, 2-year-old Jude is dead. He's gone. Kids change so much. If I don't see you guys for in a year, you're pretty close to the same person, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old, huge difference. Yeah. I will never get 2-year-old Jude back. I'll never get 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. And they change so much. And it's like, man, you got to spend time with your kids, and balancing that is hard, especially as a business owner. Like you get calls or you got appointments. I work when people can work. And a lot of times that could be evenings, and it's hard, but I've tried to just dedicate weekends to I don't work very many weekends anymore. Thankfully, in this market, I don't have to. If push comes to shove, I'm willing to. But yeah.
I got a good idea. Dude, you guys should hire a videographer and start a YouTube channel or something. You get a ton of passive income from that, and you guys already have the following. Then it makes sense to ramp up your following. Your business is still going to go crazy, and then you could just create some kind of more residual from that. I think you guys, I would watch it.
We've talked about it. We just haven't pursued any of it. And some of it boils down to just time.
Yeah.
We're getting ready. We're building a huge winery up on north side of Fort Wayne. I don't know if I've told you about that or not, but right off of Diebold and Union Chapel.
Okay.
It's going to be huge. Restaurant.
I live right over there. I live off DuPont.
You're going to love it because it's going to be a restaurant, winery, but we're going to have a 3-way because we're not that passionate about wine, so you can get beer or whatever. So
that's awesome.
It's going to be pretty cool.
But Dakota's house is going to go up in value again.
Yeah, exactly,
it's going to be pretty awesome. But anyways, we break ground on that next month. So some of it just boils down to all the irons in the fire, and we got to really start what do we want to do and what do we not want to do. We've talked about that. It's hard to know. It's hard to know sometimes what the right course of action is. But a YouTube channel is something that's come up. But
yeah, I was just thinking that might create more time freedom and more income, and then actually be a reason for them to build it or whatever. Which I was just like, well, it might work, but yeah, I definitely think you guys could grow it more than most people, especially in Fort Wayne.
What's kind of unfortunate too and depressing is like social media is changing so much, and like we spent so much time and effort, and now that the algorithms have changed, it's hard to even build the following that you could 10 years ago. And we spent all this time on Facebook and all this time on Instagram, and now you look at like, I think I saw a report the other day from like 30-year-olds and under. It was like Facebook and like Instagram was high, but Facebook was like pretty low, and it's like, now we got to start a TikTok. Now we got to start like all this other stuff just to remain current. And so it's kind of annoying, you know. It's like, can I just transfer that over to TikTok?
Yeah, you can though. That's the thing.
Can you really?
Yeah, you get a
didn't know that.
videographer or whatever, then just have them clip it, then put the clips on TikTok. People could clip this right here. Bam, they got a 10-second clip of you
So
saying
we can
something.
start over, go all the way back to the beginning of time, flipping. And
Yeah.
Well, I got at
seriously.
least one that I'm going to clip from this. Some stuff that you said. I was like writing notes like,
Oh, cool.
I'm going to clip that.
Okay, for TikTok or something.
Yeah.
No, well, probably
Did you
just
do that?
probably just for Facebook and Instagram. We kind of started with TikTok and.
Ryan Pineda, our business coach, says that like that's the best way to get like a lot of followers, because he does it. He does some dancing and he does some crazy stuff, educational and stuff like that. But like he does it, and he does really well, and like that's how he gets so many followers very quickly. So I mean it definitely works, but I mean it does take a lot of time, dude. I was literally just making a Facebook post on this house that we flipped. I was like, dude, that took me 3 hours, because I went in, I got the before and afters, I edited, I put that, and then once I got it to my phone, I was like, I edited it to where it's going to be the right size for whenever I do them. But then if I go individually, it's going to add up, and then whenever I put them all together, it messed it all up. So then I had to screenshot it, dude. I was like, I just spent 3 hours for one post. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
but like if you just hire somebody else and they're just videoing, then I think that you guys would be like, just have them follow you around with a camera, then let them do everything. You don't even need to see it, and people just seeing what you're doing, because like, dude, you guys are doing some huge things in town that like everybody wants to see. So
that's a good thought, and it is a direction we may need to pursue more.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Good advice.
Do you have anything else that you want to plug? Because there's that winery that you guys are coming out with. Are there some other things? What is the paper mill? Is that?
Oh yeah, that's an event center downtown.
And that's part of like one of the cool areas too, like where the buildings are on both sides. What the heck is that called?
The landing.
The landing. Yeah. They're kind of building that up with Promenade Park and everything. So for Fort Wayne locals that are watching this, what are some other things you guys have got going on? Some things that you want to plug? Some things, maybe social medias you want people to follow, or anything that you guys?
Our home building page is kind of the main thing where we put things, and that's our main source of business, I guess, and that's MBN Properties on Facebook or Instagram. And then we've got our website's mymbnhome.com for if you're interested in new construction or building a house. The other, union12.com, that's our event center there where our office is located. It's right on the Fort Wayne, Whitley County line, but it's on the Whitley County side, so it's a Columbia City address. And then we've got the paper mill on the landing, which I think is the papermillonthelanding.com. Or it might be papermillonthelanding.com. But that's a downtown venue. That's the third floor just above the Landing Brewery. And then we've got some rentals, but there's really no business to be talked about there. Those are all pretty much rented all the time. And then, the Vinland Reserve Winery, that's coming up. And we'll be promoting that on MBN's page too, and try to open that November, December this year.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I didn't know you guys are building something.
We're
that
going
close
big too. It's not like a steel barn that we're going to serve wine out of. It's going to be pretty awesome.
Well, based on everything else that you guys do, I better like put in a reservation now so I can get one by 2023.
The winery will be open to the public. We were actually going to do an event center there, and then we're like, this location's just too good for it to be like a private event center. So we're like, we need to do something that's open to the public. The north side of Fort Wayne needs it. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. And it may fail miserably, but
it won't.
Probably won't.
Yeah, probably not, dude. They're building so much over there too. And it definitely could. That'd be awesome. And there's a lot of money there that doesn't give very much, but they're definitely building it that way. So that's awesome about it.
So one of the last questions we ask is really deep.
Okay.
So 60 years from now, you're sitting on your deathbed.
I don't think I'll be alive 60 years from now. You don't know my age, do you?
50 years.
Okay.
Were you 36?
It's possible. It's possible.
86?
I told my wife the other day, I don't plan on living long, so
all right,
I live pretty hard.
20 years from now, you're just sitting on your deathbed. It's the end of your life. You're going to be remembered for something. There's like a saying. It could be something you would put on a billboard, like one sentence, one paragraph, something that was meaningful for your life, it's your legacy, what would that saying be?
Well, saying would be tough, but I would tell people, like I tell a lot of people, I said it earlier in this interview, but, don't blame your resources, blame your resourcefulness. You can do a lot more than you think you can do. Act in the lifetime of an opportunity. I think that's important. There's so many people that are like their jaw drops when I tell them about like Union 12 and like what you bought that and you didn't know it could be an event center and you didn't know it was zoned. And I'm like, well, we had to act now. And I'm like, yeah, you'd still be asking questions.
Right.
I'm still asking questions about stuff and I've owned it for 5 years. Like, you need to be dumb enough to act. That's the reality. I wasn't smart, but I'm dumb enough to act. And I mean, think about like I'm teaching my kid to throw a spiral right now. Like, what's the best way for him to learn to throw a spiral?
Just
want to sit and talk about it?
Yeah, no.
No, do it.
Yep.
So for me, it's a matter of doing and just know that you're going to fail some and be okay with that. Your kids can learn more from you from your failures than any success you've ever had. I'd rather sit here and tell you about all the lessons I've learned, and they're not from the 200 homes we flipped and made money. I've learned some awesome lessons that came from unfortunate mistakes. So anyways, act in the lifetime of an opportunity. And there comes a point you can't ask any more questions. Just do it. Take the risk and bet on yourself.
Dude, that's funny because we were looking at this property and then we had a lot of friends. I'll show it to you afterwards, but it's like this mansion they were looking at buying. And we had a lot of our friends that came with us and they were just like, hey, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you guys think about this? Did you do this? I was like, dude, if we had all of them with us, I like kind of like freaked out. And I'm like usually can keep my composure, especially under pressure. That was the first time when like everybody was around. We're about to sign. This is like the biggest property we ever bought. It's $500,000. And so to us, it was a lot of money.
Oh,
I was like, could everybody? I was like, are we buying it or not? Because like everybody's coming at me with all these things. I was like, dude, I was telling Tony, I was like, if we had all those people there at every property we bought, we probably would have bought half of them.
Yes.
And we've lost money on 3 houses out of like over 100.
Yes.
So I'm like, we'd have not bought all of them because all the indecision in their brains is making me like feel indecisive.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that indecisiveness is like that's not good.
No, I know. There's a lot of people that are way smarter than me, and they're like, I can't believe you did this, and you didn't know this, and you bought houses sight unseen, and it's like, yeah, you never would have.
Yeah.
And that's why those are the best margins I ever got.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of people like that just don't have all the answers, so they won't do it.
Yep.
I've never had all the answers on the businesses that I've started.
It's interesting because they are.
You think I know much about the winery business? I'm about to build one. I don't know how to make wine yet.
You figure it out.
And my banker's like, well, don't you know? And who are you going to hire? And it's like, I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, you will.
I can do it.
That's a funny thing is like you usually do figure it out. And if you're decisive and you already say you're going to, you're going to figure it out. If you don't think you're going to, even if you're really smart, then you're probably not going to.
Yeah. Yep.
And
that wasn't really a saying. I'm sorry. Not a real catchy one.
No, I got a good one out of it.
All right.
So the banker's still going to be working at the bank in 10 years, and you're still going to be building companies.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Why are the bankers asking you guys questions if you already have proof of concept multiple times?
Yeah, well, I tell people all the time, my biggest fear is my own unfulfilled potential. And I think that's a lot of people's biggest fears, but I don't want to be 50 years from now when you talked about age, I don't want to look back and say, well, I could have or I should have.
Well, you said you're not going to live that long, so.
Not 50, 50, you dropped it to 50, and now I'm interested. But yeah, I want to make sure that I do whatever the most is that I can do. And I feel like that's partly, I'm a Christian. I think that's our calling. If you've got the ability, you need to do it. So.
Yep, I believe that too.
Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners or anything that you want to say just to finish it out?
I'll give you a quick tip that helped my marriage. I figured out that you could, in 18 seconds, I can get on Amazon and have flowers sent to my house, and they'll be there tomorrow at noon.
Wow.
All you men should do that.
Yeah.
I never do it when I'm supposed to. Like, my wife does not get flowers on her birthday or on Christmas, but randomly I'll be like, you know what? She's been having a hard week, so I just got online and flowers tomorrow at noon. So anyways.
Do you guys share the Amazon account?
There's more value in that advice than you know, but
yeah,
do it.
Do you guys share that Amazon account?
She may be able to jump on and see mine, but I don't think she does. And you know what? She doesn't care. And you know what? For all those ladies out there, she doesn't want flowers. She does. No lady says that unless she only says that when she's sitting next to a bouquet of flowers that aren't hers. Yep. Send her flowers, even if she says she doesn't want them. She does want them. She wants those flowers.
That's not bad advice. I mean, we're both divorced, so.
You should both do it. You should both do it right now.
I know my girlfriend's gonna get an email, but I guess it doesn't matter. She'll still be like, "Oh, there's flowers coming."
Hey, they're actually
you just
nice.
start a
I was surprised.
secret-
I went with I always go with the cheapest ones on Amazon, and they've always lasted like 2 weeks. My wife loves them. But
That's because they're like partly synthetic plastic.
no,
and
no, that's the thing. Like they've always been nice. They've always been nice.
That's
so
awesome.
Flowers for delivery prime. All right.
That's funny too. Well, Dakota will have to get a second separate Amazon account. She'll be like, "What are you buying?" I'll be like, "I'm buying you flowers."
yeah, yeah, you should. Cool. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for having me, guys. It was fun to talk with you and visit with you some more.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in building a house, reach out to him. Also, if you're interested in learning more about real estate, remember we got the course. Like, subscribe, comment, tell us who we should have on next. See you guys.